Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Cooking with the Pros. Today's guests include Auburn University's Athletic Director Jay Jacobs, Power Force CEO Guy Savage, and also we'll see what Chef Leroy has to cook today. So get ready for Lionel and me.
You ready? What do we want to talk about? Auburn football?
Well, last week we left off with Auburn football, so let's go back to that and get back to a little bit of the NFL Combine as well.
Okay, let's start with Auburn football first.
Okay.
I think the first place you start at is coming back in the next season. Obviously, you have spring practice coming in, going into the season, and then there's some questions that will be answered. But what you have to do is look at first is what's the main focus of what's lost from last year.
Okay.
All right, so now if you look down at not only what was lost, but also what's coming in, and what I mean by that is you got some coaches coming in, and it's not just the 100% players thing. So now if you look at the list as far as what was lost, you got to go Brandon Mosley, offensive tackle, free safety, Nico Thorpe, outside linebacker, El Toro Freeman. All right, but now there's another person on that list that was lost before the season ended, and that was Dyer, one of the great running backs that they had now. He's transferring on, and he's not an Auburn Tiger anymore. Now, with those people being lost, you have a new coordinator. You have a new defensive and offensive coordinator. Offensive coordinator, Loeffler, was a Tim Tebow quarterback coach at Florida, and Van Gorder, who comes from Atlanta, who in the professional football experience, what you get is a coach that is well versed in every phase of football. So now what you got coming in is you've lost some, but then now you got a transition. You can say you only lost 3 or 4 people, all right, but technically, really you lost those 3 or 4, but you coming in with a change for 22 people, 11 on offense and 11 on defense.
So, talk to me like I'm a 6th grader so everybody understands. Auburn won 7 games last year. They've lost a lot of players. They're rebuilding, as they always say. Okay. Give me a little bit of their strengths and a little bit of their weaknesses.
Okay, I think when you go, and we're talking from last season.
Right.
All right. I think the strength obviously is in their skill position on offense. You got Blake at wide receiver, and you had Dyer, but McCaleb I've always thought was probably the best of the 2 of those running backs. You had a tight end, and they could score some points. Offensive line was young, and then you lost some offensive linemen this year, and you got to replace them. But the strength of that, I'm going to say, is in your skill position. I don't want to say weaknesses, but if I had to say which was stronger, which was second best, I would say defense was second best. Defense is always trying to catch up to offenses, and if you are young on defense, what happens on defense is that, hey, you got to be in better shape than everybody else. You have got to have been around. So now, before I even say what was second best on there, I'm going to still say that if you look at the seniors on each SEC team last year, there was probably 14 to 15 seniors on each team, because what you need is that senior leadership on the field when the coach can't be on the field. It's just that person that you look forward to that you know is going to stand there with you. And Auburn only had 9 or 10 of those guys. So that's a weakness. So now you're talking strength down to the weakest part of it. I think it was basically the senior leadership. Now, how do you get all that back on track? Number one thing is recruiting. So now the recruiting ball has to fall in place. So now somewhere, you don't want those guys to come in and play right now, but you do want 1 or 2 of those guys to step in and be able to play, even if it's just spot playing, to get them experience so that now when the true challenge comes along, that they're prepared to get in there and do whatever it takes and stand up as if they were an upper class player.
Now, do you know very much, I know, it's about the new offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator?
Not much, and I think what happens with that is basically if I was the offensive coordinator, if I was the head coach, Gene Chizik, I would say least amount as possible, because remember, right now, as a coach or a player in SEC football, you are continuously on a job interview. All right. The more I know about you as an opposing team, the more I know about you, as soon as I can know it about you, I start putting that in the bank. So when it's my time to play you, I got as much information as I can on you. All right, now, that information won't come out until probably a little slip of the tongue, but by spring practice, you know exactly what a coach is all about. Now, on the offensive side of football, you know, and I'm reading between the lines. Remember, it's all our opinions, right? That's all we have.
That's all we have?
All right. Now, if I've got an offensive coordinator that's coming in and maybe, hey, he's Coach Tim Tebow, I'm pretty sure there's some stuff in there that he liked about what Tim Tebow did. But now, does he have a Tim Tebow type quarterback? And I shouldn't say Tim Tebow because I'm an Auburn guy. I'm going to say Cam Newton. Does he have a Cam Newton type guy? I'm going to say no, he don't right now. He might have it in 4 years from the guys that he have there. But then, sure, you got to start looking along that line as what is comfortable for the offensive coordinator now, but through time, it'll be what is comfortable for that quarterback through the eyes of the offensive coordinator.
Well, since you brought it up about the quarterback situation, how is that going to be? What's the competition like for Auburn quarterbacks?
You know, that's a tough question, all right? Because, you know, I can sit here and say Frazier, and in my opinion, I say, okay, he's an athlete. Okay, he can run with it. He can escape. He didn't really have to throw, and he was young last year, so he kind of spot played. Now, what is his role going to be? What is the offensive coordinator coming in to look for? All right, then now you start saying competition. And in the competition, you've got to throw in the mix of the freshman that's coming in, you know. And when you put all that in a package, how's that going to go? Who's the better of the three? Who knows more, and what type of offense have you been in? Young quarterback who's never hit the seam yet, Zeke Pike from Kentucky. All right, we don't know yet. It's kind of we stir in the bowl right now. We're trying to make a cake. We just got ingredients here and there, and we don't know if we got salt to season everything yet.
Well, what can you tell me about Zeke Pike? You got any?
You know, once again, you've played high school football before, all right? Now, with your experience in high school football, and you are recruited to play in Division I football, right away, anybody recruited to play college Division I football has left the situation where he is a man amongst boys. All right, and he would never say that. I'm sure no one coming out of high school going to college would say that and step in and you the little fish in the big pond when you get to college. Again, you no longer senior in high school. Now you're back to being a freshman in college. All right, now here's a guy that has all the accolades, throws for zillions and zillions of yards. You know, he's standing 6'5", 6'6". Hey, on the hoof, as they say in the NFL, you know. That's what I want right there to lead my team. But now, here's a guy that comes in as a blank sheet of paper. Now, am I rooting for him? Oh, you bet I am. You bet I'm rooting for him. But then now, it's up to him to come in and step in. And, hey, in the beginning, you've got to fit in wherever you can get in.
Can he fit in?
Well, that's to be seen, my dear.
Well, you know, and I know that. You know, I hear about the 5-star, the 6-star, and all that. The only star it is, like Mike Tyson used to say, everybody got a good plan until they get hit in the mouth. Can he take a punch in the mouth and be able to work his way into that starting lineup at some time? I'm not saying this year. I'm just saying I like to see these guys that are picked and they give them all these accolades and everything. I want to see a guy that can play. And that's all you can ask of him. If he has an opportunity to get in the game, you know, we're only an injury away from being a starter. I just want to know that he can get in there and play and kind of help the team reach its common goal. And I do believe, from what I'm hearing, and that's only opinion,
right?
But I'm hearing that he's going to be that type of quarterback. Coming up, we're going to have Auburn Athletic Director Jay Jacobs. Cooking with the Pros is brought to you by Alabama Power, always on.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
What is it that makes us different here?
You know how to do number 13?
Yes, ma'am.
Say it. Who?
Sweet friend bringing me a
Maybe it's knowing when to help. Check one of the Project Share boxes on your power bill and help someone who really needs it.
Here at the Charter International Dateline facility, scientists have 1 foot in today and 1 foot literally in tomorrow to bring Charter customers the latest thing. Oh, it's Casual Friday over here. Like switching your phone service from AT&T, Verizon, or CenturyLink, Charter guarantees to cut your phone bill in half. Speaking of cutting things in half, where's the rest of those pants?
Hey, welcome back to Cooking with the Pros today. We have the honor and the pleasure of interviewing Jay Jacobs, athletic director for the University of Auburn. I'm sorry.
Right.
Oh, don't hit me! Don't hit me! Jay, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great, Gary. It's Auburn University.
I like it.
Now, see, I'm a Yankee. I went to the University of Pittsburgh, so I'm just now learning about this Auburn, Alabama rivalry. Man, you guys just get it done, huh?
It doesn't take long, does it, Gary, to learn about that rivalry, does it?
Not at all, especially when you wake up with an Alabama graduate every day. So,
bless your heart.
I'm telling you, I go through it, Jay. But listen, you guys have had a fantastic couple of years. You're into the rebuilding process, and that's kind of what we want to talk about. What your expectations are, and that type of thing.
Yeah, happy to. Hey, again, thanks, Gary and Lionel, for having me on. We appreciate what y'all do for the state and for college athletics particularly. But yeah, we've had a good couple of years. You know, certainly, winning the national championship in 2010 was great for Auburn. And recently we've hired 3 new coaches, 2 new coordinators, offensive and defensive coordinators, and just recently on Friday we named a new defensive back coach. But we've had 3 top 10 in the nation recruiting classes the last 3 years, and then again our league is expanding, adding Texas A&M, Missouri. So a lot is happening in the Southeastern Conference. A lot is happening at Auburn. But we're continuing to build this foundation. Feel like we got a great foundation in place now. 3 years into Gene being here as the head coach and doing great recruiting, and just continue to fight in this league. This the nation's best league. In all sports, but particularly in football.
Right, Jay, quick question. Playing under Coach Dye, and with him being the head football coach out there, and as you and I know, he ran a tight ship, very disciplined. And then there was Neil Callaway, who was your position coach. And as tough as it was for us playing and practicing, the games were easy. Practice was hard. Most guys would kind of try to steer away from the football field. What was your attraction to getting back into coaching and headed towards the athletic directorship?
I tell you, Lionel, what you just said, I say that all the time, is that our game day Saturday was the easiest day of the week. I think our aerobics on Sunday morning were tougher than playing on Saturday.
Exactly.
Under Coach Dye and Neil and James Daniel, all those guys. I came out of playing here at Auburn, and I coached for a couple of years while I was getting my MBA degree, and I coached the tight ends. And I just didn't have the passion for coaching that it took to be a successful position coach, particularly in the Southeastern Conference. I had a business background. I had my business degree, my MBA, as I mentioned, and I was more interested in being involved in the administrative side of things. So I quickly began to work in game management, do things administratively for football, and fortunately over the last 20 plus years I've had a chance to work in about every aspect of this athletics department. I certainly miss the one-on-one relationships with an assistant coach and player, that relationship, but I enjoy being able to work with our coaches and our other folks here in the athletics department and our university president to put programs and things in place that give all of our student athletes an opportunity to grow spiritually, mentally, and physically each day. And that's a blessing to be able to see that, even though it is sometimes from a distance.
Jay, earlier you mentioned about the new coaches that you hired. Talk to us a little bit about each one of those coaches.
Happy to. Our defensive coordinator is Brian Van Gorder. As you all probably remember, Brian was defensive coordinator at Georgia back in the early 2000s, and then most recently was the defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. What a class guy. He and Gene had crossed paths several times. One or two guys on our current staff had actually worked for Brian in Central Florida. And when Ted left to go to University of Central Florida, Brian was, as all head coaches do, Gene had a list of 3 or 5 coaches that would be his, top people to replace. And Brian was the number one guy on the list. Didn't think that, we'd have a chance to get him because he was in pro ball. But as things worked out, certainly with the professionalism of the Atlanta Falcons and certainly with the way that we do business, we were able to get that done as soon as the Falcons got through in the playoffs. So I couldn't be more excited about Brian and his wife and their 5 children being a part of the Auburn family. And then we went out and Gene went out and had a list of offensive coordinators, folks he wanted to look at, and narrowed it down to a couple of guys. And Scott Leffler was the guy that, at the end of the day, was the one that sold Gene on being here. A young guy, been at Michigan, played at Michigan, coached at Detroit Lions, coached Tim Tebow at Florida, and was most recently the offensive coordinator at Temple. But a relatively young guy in this business as offensive coordinator. But man, what a great guy! And looking so forward to having he and his wife and their young infant daughter Alexis part of our program. And then lastly, on Friday, we hired a defensive back coach that had been in this league before. Most recently was at Oklahoma. And I think that with the final hire there, I think we're done for the year, and just looking forward to moving forward. As we begin to do those winter workouts, Lionel, and then get into spring practice, and here we all go again.
Right, Jay. Question: as an athletic director, and I know this has to do with your personality, are you a scene guy? Or are you an office guy? In other words, the student athlete that comes in, do you think it's important to have a relationship, not such a personal relationship with you, but are you to be seen, or are you kind of like the disciplinarian once you come into the office and I have to talk to you?
Well, I think that what I do is because I enjoy being with student athletes so much, I do both. I mean, there's certainly situations, Lionel, in which I have to be the disciplined guy, but I don't like to surprise anybody. I don't like for somebody to have to come into my office the first time they've ever met me. So oftentimes, I get a chance to fellowship with our student athletes. Once a year or so, I have all the student athletes over to my house, broken down by teams to have dinner with Angie and my wife and our children. So, I spent the weekend. This weekend we had a very busy weekend. We had equestrian going on. We had softball going on. We had gymnastics Friday night. We had baseball all weekend. So it's been an exciting weekend. I spent the day, with all of our student athletes at events. So I'm out and about as much as I possibly can, because that's where the real joy is being out with those young ladies and those young men, and certainly our coaches and our fans. So I try to strike a good balance of both of those, Lionel. That's what I try to do each day.
Great.
Well, Jay, since you mentioned the student athletes, Lionel and I have a program called Pro Start Academy, where we teach kids how to market themselves for college scholarship consideration. As an athletic director and a former player, what advice would you give a kid that has an interest in going to college?
Oh goodness! The advice I would give them is that you have to be great in high school academically. You've really got to spend more time than you think you need to academically in high school. Is that your question, Gary?
Yes.
I mean, it's so competitive in the classroom, and the average ACT of the incoming class this past fall at Auburn was 27.1.
Wow.
ACT.
Wow.
That's who you're competing against in the classroom. And so you really have to take time and prepare and go the extra mile and try to take those AP classes. And the classes that you're in, you have to excel at. You have to treat it, what we tell our student athletes is you have to treat school like a job. You have to spend at least 8 hours a day on it. And, being a student athlete, that's difficult to do. But that's what our goal is. And so, for those young men and women that want to come and compete, particularly in the Southeastern Conference, they've got to prepare in the classroom in high school. It can't just start when you get here because you've got to start those habits. One thing, Lyle, that Coach Dow always used to say is, character was was an all-time thing, not a sometime thing. It's the same thing with learning and teaching yourself how to be disciplined in the classroom and studying. That's an all-time thing, not a sometime thing.
Well, Jay, I have to agree with you 100%. And as I understand, the NC2A is going to change the rules on some of the ACT and SAT requirements to get a college scholarship. So over the next 3 years, I understand it's going to change dramatically. So if these kids don't get it now, starting like you say in 9th grade on up, they're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities to go to college.
There's no doubt about it, Gary. I mean, the academic requirements are going to continue to increase. They're not going to go backwards. They're going to continue to increase because, the mission of our institution is to educate young men and women and to get them a degree. And, every time, even going back 20 years ago, when there was satisfactory progress where you just had to pass 36 hours during a quarter year, a year that's based on quarter system, and they increased that, and the student athletes caught up with that. We always as people always seem to rise to the occasion of whatever goal it is that we have to achieve in order to be successful. And I do not see in any circumstance where the academic standards are going to be lightened any.
Well, Jay, I've got one last question that I want to ask. I know Lionel has a ton, but after having to replace all the players that you guys have done after your national championship and going into last year, what would you tell your fan base now, based on all the changes you guys have made? What kind of patience would you want from them, and what would you tell them about what you're doing to the program now?
Well, we're in our, as I mentioned, we're in our third year, and we feel like we've gotten a pretty good foundation. Even though, last year, the 2011 football season, there was only one school in the nation that played more freshmen than we did. But the good thing about that is that now we've got 16 starters returning for this fall. This league is a very, very tough league. It's been demonstrated over the years, but we feel good about where we are. We feel great about the 3 top 10 signing classes, and getting through 2011 we knew that was going to be tough because of the numbers, particularly in the juniors and seniors. And now going into 2012. We feel like we've got a foundation there. We don't have as many older players with experience as we would like, but by 2013 we'll know we'll be there. So 2012 will be a very important year for us as far as 16 returning starters, continuing to bring along the young guys that we signed over the last couple of years. But it'll be an exciting year. We start off, in the Georgia Dome against Clemson on September the 1st, and we look to finish our season in the Georgia Dome, or at least the last regular season game in the SEC championship after the last regular season game in the Georgia Dome. But we're excited about where we are. We're excited about our coaching staff, and we really look forward to the challenge of 2012.
Stretching that out just a little bit, Jay, do you take that same philosophical approach across the board with all sports?
No doubt about it. Here's the thing, is that even though we're playing this coming fall, we're playing 8 teams that played in bowl games, and 2 of them played the national championship game. But our goal is to win SEC championships, because in the Southeastern Conference, if you can win SEC championships, you can win national championships. And so yes, that's the goal across the board, is to win championships. We have 5 goals, Lionel. One is to win SEC championships. The other is to graduate our student athletes, and we're second to none in that area. The third is to play within the rules. Fourth is to balance our budget, and fortunately, over the last few years, we've been able to do that. And then fifth is provide a professional game day experience, and our game day experience here at Auburn is second to none in the country, as evidenced by the fans and people that come to our campus. So those are the 5 goals, but it all starts with winning and graduating our student athletes.
So what you just did, taking a book from David Housel, he once told me this. He said, if you can answer the 5 W's, then you can solve your problem. The 5 W's, I asked him, I said, what is that? He says, if you can answer who, what, why, when, and how, then you got your solution.
No doubt about it.
Well, Jay, I tell you what, man, I've watched you guys play. I know what you're capable of doing. I'm looking at your recruiting year. You guys had a great recruiting year, and I'm looking forward to it. But what I want to say is thank you so much for coming on our show, and we look forward to your upcoming season, and hopefully we can get you back on the show sometime.
Hey, I'd love to do it, Gary. Thank you, and thank you, Lionel, my former teammate there. Hey, I appreciate you, man. Gary, he stood right behind me in the huddle. He was a left halfback, and I was a left offensive tackle. He stood right behind me in the huddle, and man, what an encouragement he was every day at practice and in ball games, particularly during tough times. But I appreciate him and respect him, and I thank you both for having me on the show, and I wish you nothing but the best, and I'd be happy to come back on at any time. And anytime you guys are in Auburn, please stop by and see me. But in the meantime, War Eagle, and God bless you both.
All right, take care.
Okay, you ready? Surprise. Yeah! Wait for me!
Come on.
Daddy?
Yeah?
The power of yeah.
Yeah.
Brought to you in part by Alabama Power. Always on.
Watching, waiting for something to amaze me. That's when it happened. Right in front of me.
You haven't seen it until you've seen it in Charter HD. Call now to add Charter HD for only $5 more a month and watch all your favorite programs in HD. Charter, let it all in.
This is Archie Griffin, 2-time Heisman Trophy winner. You're watching Cooking with the Pros.
Welcome back to Cooking with the Pros. On the phone today, we have Guy Savage, the CEO of Power Force. And the unique thing about Guy is that he has a story to tell, and hopefully he will tell the total story about how he came from the loading dock to the boardroom. And Guy, how are you today, my friend?
I'm very good. Thank you very much, Gary.
Well, you know, it's an amazing story, and we want our fans to know how you got from the loading dock to the boardroom. And just give us the Guy story, the Guy Savage story.
Well, I'm not originally from Birmingham. I was born in New York and raised in Chicago. But, you know, my story's not much different from everybody else that's going on in the world today. But, you know, I started out with nothing. You know, I have great parents, but they didn't have a lot of money. And to me, it went through a divorce early in my life and found myself homeless, literally living out of my car and sleeping in rest stops and doing odd jobs to, you know, just get gas money and to feed myself. And really realized one day that, you know, I needed to really look inside myself and figure out what I really wanted to do and give all my effort to it. And I've done so many different things in my life and so many different jobs just to get by until I started focusing on what I wanted. And you know, it's a story that so many people go through, Gary, that sometimes they get discouraged, but you know, you got to look inside yourself to pull yourself up.
Well, Guy, you did a great job of pulling yourself up, but tell us a little bit about Power Force. How did you come up with the concept?
A company we started about 24 months ago, and first we came out with our ion-infused bracelets and licensed college logos on the bracelets, and did very well. And as I was creating that project, I have another partner of mine, Jim, and we sat and talked about, you know, coming up with an apparel line and a shoe line made for really everyday people that you know, that can afford, you know, great shoes and afford great apparel that competes with, you know, the best that's out there. And we started this company, and it's all based upon people believing in themselves and people understanding that they're so valuable and that they're born with this tremendous, force that's inside of them. And if they put on our stuff, we're not going to guarantee that you can jump higher or throw a ball farther, but we know this: if you put it on, you're going to think to yourself that you're valuable and you're a very positive contribution to society, and that's what our company is about.
Well, I tell you what, I have been blessed to know you, and I don't even know if I've shared this with you, Lionel, but our program, Pro Start Academy, is now partnering with Power Force, and Guy has a great vision for developing a success strategy, as he mentioned earlier, for people that actually need a success strategy in their life. So kind of share with us, Guy, your thought process on how you're going to reach out to folks that need this success strategy training, and what you're trying to, what you envision for the public.
Well, number one, partnering with Pro Start was one of the first great things that we're going to do is give an opportunity for the kids out there and the athletes out there that you guys will be mentoring to wear our stuff, see our apparel. But not only that, not just the apparel and the shoes, but to really reach out to everybody in a way that is sort of a little different than marketing truly is today. We want everybody to aspire to be great in the way that they can best, and to be the best person that they can be, no matter if you're an athlete, or whatever you're doing in your life, to do the best at it and to try the hardest at it, and don't get discouraged because you are valuable. The message we're trying to put out, we've just come up with the commercial where our website's about to go live. New website's going to go out live in about 10 days. We're doing a national marketing campaign about people believing in themselves, that they're capable of doing such great things. And that starts with the kids, and it starts, and also with parents promoting the children to make sure that they understand that they're capable of great things, and not just to try to emulate somebody on TV, but really to try to be the best person that they can be. And that's what Power Force is all about. That we have a great power in ourselves, and we need to use that force that's there.
God, Lionel James, I love your story about your past. And what I do know is that tough times don't last. It's the tough people that are in the fight for the long run of it. You talked about your parents, and I want to know how much influence did they have in your life. And the next thing is, I know that in the field of sports, there's coaching, playing, and then there's apparel. I don't care what anybody says, everyone on the football field wants to look good. So now, thinking about that, you have taken a giant, huge step to get in the ring with the Nikes of the world, the Adidases, the Reeboks. What gave you the courage and the strength to step out on that ledge and take that step?
Well, some people call it a little bit of being naive, but I really truly believe our core beliefs gives us the opportunity to step out. There's so many tremendous athletes up in the world that are so talented and been blessed with so many great skills, and everybody feels that they want to be a certain way or like someone else. But how we view being able to compete with some of those big guys, we don't want to be able to just say that you're going to be like somebody else. We want you to be you. We want you to be the best, and you have so many good qualities that, to me, growing up, I looked every morning at my father, get up for work and provide for our family, and the parenting that went along with that, and making sure that we had food and we were taken care of. It wasn't a household where we had a lot of things. One year we got a football for Christmas. That's what we got. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, but it was the discipline that they instilled in us to work hard and to make sure